Morning. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let's start again. Okay, the next topic I have in mind together with you, it's chapter 7, economics. To a certain extent, building up upon the chapter 5 we did, and the chapter 6, I would say more chapter 6 than chapter 5. It will be about the consumer surplus, producer surplus, and in general, the efficiency of markets in general. And this is more or less the basis what we are then planning to do in chapter 8, addressing the overall disadvantage coming from having a tax imposed on buyers or sellers. Chapter 8, deadweight loss. Chapter 7, the introduction into the consumer and producer surplus. Okay, it will be, as you can see here, it should be about welfare economics, okay? In your semester number 4, I think, you will do our B course on basic sustainability. There we will go on with welfare economics to a certain extent. And then you have a kind of advantage because you already know the basics in welfare economics. In this course, basic sustainability, we will do, for instance, game theory as well. It's a combination of business aspects of sustainability, economics aspects of sustainability, technical aspects, and so on. Okay, as always, it should be about the allocation of resources, okay? And we would like to come up in market transactions which will gain efficiency, which will gain surpluses for consumers and producers, as we will see within this chapter. And we would like to have the focus on the society in terms of maximizing benefits, okay? Or here you can see it as well, maximizing the total benefits, okay? Total benefits received by all buyers and all sellers in a combined way. Okay, that's why it's called welfare economics. We are not planning to have the focus exclusively on buyers or exclusively on sellers. We are trying to combine them. But first of all, we need a, let's say, kind of separated perspective, which then will be combined. Okay. Maybe you can remember our introduction into the demand side. Consumers are willing and able to buy. Can you remember that phrase? The demand curve, it was chapter 4, I think, isn't it? Economics, chapter 4.
Smaller elasticity tax hurts more.
I have something different in mind. The introduction into the demand side.
Supply and demand.
Just give me one. Here, this one, have in mind. Here, demand side, able and willing to buy, okay? And this, with regards to that willing, this was chapter 4, economics, about not only the ability to buy, but it's about the willingness, okay? And based upon that willingness, here you can see it, the willingness to pay, okay? Buyers and consumers, they are willing to pay, and the demand curve gives you that willingness to pay and ability to pay to a certain extent, okay? It's about the willingness to pay, or it's about the extent to which buyers value that good, okay? Giving a value. And the consumer surplus, you can see here, it's always a difference amount the buyer is willing to pay for a good minus the amount this person really has to pay. Okay, let's say Let's say I would be willing to pay for that Apple Pencil, just an idea. Let's say I would be willing to pay 120 bucks. I can buy it for 100 bucks. And the difference, 120 minus 100, that's my surplus, okay? My willingness to pay is not 120. My typically I'm aligning my willingness to pay to the prices, and then I'm deciding if I really need that product or not. But that's the general idea, okay? Each and everybody has a certain willingness to pay, and this willingness to pay you then have to compare with the actual price, and the difference, that's your private surplus. Okay, you can see the definition, the willingness to pay minus the price paid. Now let's do an example, not for only one person, but for 4 different guys. Here, willingness to pay for a certain good. I don't know which one. Okay, forget about it. Taylor, Carrie, blah, 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 and so on. They have different willingnesses to pay. And then here, it's always you can see it as well, and measures the benefit, okay, very closely related to the demand curve. We have seen the demand schedule as well, just a kind of summary. The guy with the highest willingness to pay here, it's easier to see, it was Taylor. Taylor 100 bucks, the Taylor 100 bucks we can see here. That's Taylor's willingness to pay, and then the second one, third one, and so on, okay? And here it's, they can see the item, it's about Elvis Presley's first album, okay? But you can talk about, I don't know, maybe PlayStation 2 or whatever, I don't know, okay? Good. Here we have a somehow new term, it's about the marginal buyer. That term, I would say, it's not as relevant, okay? It's always the last one, so to say. The consumer surplus, not only for a single person, but for a market, it's an area, okay? It's always the area in between the demand curve and above the equilibrium price, okay? And I think in terms of understanding, having a look to the graph, it's always a good idea. Whenever it's about economics, and then please always try to think in graphs. This was Taylor, okay? Let's say the price would be 80. Taylor is willing to pay 100. He had to buy 80. And the difference here in between, that's a surplus, okay? If for a price of 80, if the price is only 70, then Taylor has a surplus of 30, here we are. And then if the price is only in that way 70, then Carrie wants to buy as well. Carrie, she or he? Carrie, let's say it's she. Carrie is willing to pay 80. Carrie has to pay 70. Her surplus is 10. Okay. Here to all of you. And then we have a total surplus of 30 and 10, which in total is 40. Okay. And there you can see the smaller the price, the higher typically the consumer surplus. Okay. And later on within another graph, you can see typically we will do it in that way. Okay. And then here, this is the consumer surplus. And then if you have a shift to this curve or that curve, the consumer surplus will change. Up to now, we have a consumer surplus. For sure, we will have a producer surplus as well. But first things first. And yeah, that's the way how it will work. Okay. And once you're lowering down the price, then let's say that's what we can see here already. If the price is 80, Taylor's consumer surplus is 20. If the price is smaller, then Taylor's consumer surplus grows. And the other way around. Good. And that's what I had in mind already. A lower price raises the consumer surplus. That's a general comment. The smaller the price, the higher the consumer surplus, for two reasons. the already existing ones in the market, they will have to pay a smaller price, increasing their private surplus. And due to the smaller price, we have additional buyers entering the market. Okay. In that situation, you can see it here. If the price would be 80, it's only Taylor. If the price is 70, then it's Taylor and Carry. Okay. We have additional buyers entering the market. And here that's the additional surplus by Carry. And that's the additional surplus for Taylor due to the smaller price. Okay. In a somehow similar consideration, we have seen both effects already a few weeks ago. Here, two different effects. Both of them are very important. Okay, up to now we have seen the demand pattern for 4 buyers. Typically, we do not only have 4. Typically, we have thousands of buyers, and then we are there. Okay, if the price is P1, then the consumer surplus it's that one. If the price goes down to P2, then you have for the already existing buyers, that's their additional surplus, okay? Additional surplus, consumer surplus to the initial consumers. And due to the smaller price, we have some new buyers entering the market. And this is the additional consumer surplus with regards to the new consumers. Okay, some more details you can see here, but I think that's fine for all of you. Do all of you know how to calculate the area of a triangle?
Yes, it's
Okay, I think all of you know that basic formula. That's what we will need. That's all the math, I would say, what we will need in chapter 7 economics. It's not really math, I know that. Okay, we can prove the formula for the triangle, by the way. And in Germany, you will learn that formula once you are, I would say, 13 or 14 years old. Okay, that's why it's not really math. Okay, consumer surplus. Yeah, I think you can read that slide by yourselves. Typically, consumer surplus, it's a good measure of economic well-being in general, but we have one or at least one exception, as always in life. The exception here, it's illegal drugs, okay? Because if the price is smaller, yeah, then we have more people joining the market due to the fact of being addicted, the willingness to pay for a high price is even very high, most probably. Okay, but this part you can read by yourselves. That's about the consumer surplus. We have the producer surplus as well. The way of thinking, very, very similar, I would say. Here we are. Cost. Now it's not about the willingness to buy. Now it's about the willingness to sell, okay? And the producer, let's say I'm producing, now I'm Apple, now I'm producing that pencil. I can produce it, let's say, for $30. If I'm able to sell it for $100, then I'm winning $70. Okay, that's more or less the producer surplus in a nutshell. The price received minus the willingness to sell, and the willingness to sell, for sure, it's somehow connected to the cost most of the time. Okay, here we have another example, different cost of 4 possible sellers. Okay. The one has very high cost. We have one with very small cost. Okay, we can again transfer that way of thinking into not a demand pattern, but into a supply schedule, and so on and so on. Okay, and then we'll have a supply curve. We will have the term marginal seller, very similar to what we did for the consumer surplus. And if you would like to see the supply curve, here we are. We have the one with very low cost. We have the one with very high cost, and so on and so on. Okay, where can we find the producer surplus?
on the right side of the curve. It's between the equilibrium point and the final point, or
between the, let's say, equilibrium price and the supply curve. Okay. As we have seen, this one, it's consumer surplus, and this one here, it's the producer surplus. Okay, graphs like that we will see within that chapter. And the introduction you can see here, okay, and then you can sum up all the different areas. We are doing the very basic approach. If you would have more time, then we would end up with an integral from A to B, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but here it's only linear curves, and that's why it's easy. Okay, as you can see here, if the price is 600, this is the producer surplus. Andy is willing to offer his product for a price of 500. Once he gets 600, he has a surplus of 100. If we have a higher price, then Andy is even more happy because 8 minus 5 is equal to 3. Due to the higher price, we have the second guy, Pablo. He has it's clear, it's a he.
Yeah, extra $200.
Yes, he will get 800 as well. His willingness to sell is 600. He has a surplus of 200, and so on. Okay, same consideration for a higher price as you have seen here. The smaller the price, the higher the consumer surplus, and the other way around for the producer surplus. Okay, consumers, as always, we as consumers, we are happy with a low price. Okay, and vice versa for the producers. The producers, they are more happy for a higher price. Okay, because of the higher price, we have the two effects again. The existing sellers, like Andy, I think, he will get more producer surplus. Now it's not 100 but 300, and so on and so on. And then Pablo is entering the market. The new sellers, they will gain additional producer surplus. I think that's clear as well, isn't it? And we have seen the picture for the demand side already. Here you can see the very similar picture for the supply side, for the producers. It's always the area in between the price and the supply curve. Once the price P2 is higher than the P1, the initial producers, they will get additional producer surplus, and we have some new producers entering the market, getting some producer surplus as well. Clear to all of you up to now?
One question: do producers exist outside of the, for example, the P2 area? Because it would be rather unbeneficial if they do exist.
I do not really get your question, to be honest. Outside of the P2.
What I meant is that, for example, let's think of a producer that produces a higher quantity than Q1 and Q2 and is actually outside of the producer the surplus area.
Outside of the producers?
Would that exist? Or
are we here, or where are
yes, on that curve? Wouldn't it be unbeneficial to be there? Or would
at the end, it's always the intersection of supply and demand, which gives you the price. Okay, and that's I would say the supply curve itself. It's a very stylized idea. The same for the demand side. And in our way of thinking, we will always have to combine it with the demand side. Okay, let's say we will end up in P1 if this is the demand curve. Okay, and then for whatever reason this is D1, and then you will have D2. Okay, because you have additional consumers, whatever. Okay, and then we have a first producer surplus and we have a second producer surplus. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now we are done with the single consideration, so to say. We know what is meant by producer surplus and consumer surplus. Do you have an idea how to measure economic well-being in general? What could be meant by economic well-being?
To find out the stability of the supply and the demand?
Not really the stability. If the economic well-being is the combined perspective of producers and consumers, what could be a measure for the economic well-being?
I mean, if it's a combination, then it should be the combination of surpluses.
Yeah, or the combination of the two, let's say, single surpluses, just the sum of consumer surplus and producer surplus. Okay, and that's what you can see here. The economic well-being of a society can be measured with the help of the total surplus, the sum of consumer and producer surplus. Okay, that's the typical consideration to measure the consumer surplus. Good, that's part number one. Part number two, you can see here, consumer surplus, that's what we already know, that's a kind of summary. Consumer surplus is the value to buyers minus the amount they will have to pay. Same perspective for the sellers. And then this total surplus, it's nothing else but the consumer surplus plus the producer surplus, okay? Or if you do it in the combined perspective, by just plugging in, so to say, if you're defining consumer surplus in this way, and if you're defining producer surplus in that way, and then you can see here that amount paid by buyers, amount received by sellers. If you have no taxes, it's the same. And that's why here, the overall total surplus, you will end up in this one minus that one. Okay, you have something like A minus B, and the second one is B minus C. And if you're summing up the first one and the second one, then oh no, I was not fast enough. Now the B cancels out, okay? And then you are there. Okay, that's a kind of second perspective, the value to buyers minus the cost to sellers. Okay, are there any questions from your side? Are there any questions via Zoom? I will have to ask our Zoom participants for a second. If you're happy with the content up to now, please give us, I think, the first green check mark for today, isn't it? Please give us the green check mark right now if you're happy with the content up to now.
Here, the point number 3, amount paid by buyers equals to the amount received by the sellers. It's just only valid for B2B, right? Or maybe B2C. Because then you have to include the transportation.
Yeah, it's nothing else but another model, I would say. Okay. Yeah, you're right. There it's not about taxes at all. Okay. Because typically we would have to think of taxes, we would have to think of transportation costs, whatever. But maybe I can help you. Transportation costs should be included there. Okay, we can try to come as close as possible to your ideas. Okay, up to now we have only 3 green check marks via Zoom. There should be 15 green check marks. No more green check marks today. Okay, now please give me a few seconds. I have to prepare something which I would like to show to all of you. It's about figuring out the if it works. I hope that it works, and we will need, that's why I did the sound check a second ago. If the machine here is fast enough, come on. Now it works. Please give me a few seconds. You will have to listen carefully. It's cold. You will have to check if you can all of you should be able to listen to the sound, otherwise my idea makes no sense. Okay, today we will not get too much green check marks via Zoom, unfortunately. I think all of you know the film, the movie Pretty Woman, isn't it? No, you don't know Pretty Woman? You will have to. You will have to watch it. Okay.
Are we gonna watch it?
We will watch about 3 minutes out of Pretty Woman together right now. Okay, for a very specific reason.
What's it about?
You will see it in a second. Okay. I hope that we can listen to the sound, and I hope that all our Zoom participants can listen to the sound as well. Let's do the sound check.
I see like
okay, and here in the classroom it works. I hope that we can do it via Zoom as well. What? No. Okay, I have to change it here. No, here. And then sharing the screen with our Zoom participants again. Please listen very carefully, okay? And please try to think in terms of producer surplus and consumer surplus. Here we are. Okay, now I think all of you can see it. I'm not sure if it's fine to do that in terms of copyright, but yeah.
Don't worry, no one will ever know.
Anyone can play it.
Okay,
The beat.
and please listen. They in about 2 minutes. The overall movie, I think it's 3 minutes, and after about something like 2 minutes, they will present some figures. Okay, some numbers. Please try to listen very carefully to the numbers, and please try to always think in terms of consumer surplus and producer surplus. Okay.
Yes, yeah, I'm here.
If you want to impress me,
Housekeeping is singing.
got to be too flirty, mama. I know how to
Yeah.
undress me.
Listen, Edward, I know a lot of nice girls.
Richard Gere
Oh, you
and
don't?
I just
Julia Roberts.
want your extra time and your kiss.
Besides, I already have one.
If you want to impress me,
You just concentrate on finding out what Morse is up to.
be too flirty,
I'm
mama.
on my way.
I know how to undress me. Yeah, baby. I wanna be your fantasy. Well, maybe you could be mine. You just leave it all up to me. Don't you just love Prince?
More than... Do you expect me to answer?
I would have stayed for 2,000.
Yeah. No, come on. How can I get rid of that stuff?
Baby, I'm gonna treat you so nice.
Okay. Was my mistake. Sorry. Okay. I was jumping to the end. Sorry for that. I'm not the YouTube expert, as you can see.
I just want your
Okay, now good.
extra time and your kiss.
Besides, I already have one.
If you want to impress me,
You just concentrate on finding out what Morse is up to.
be too flirty,
I'm on my way.
I know how to undress me. Yeah, baby. I wanna be your fantasy. Well, maybe you could be mine. You just leave it all up to me. Don't you just love Prince?
More than life itself.
Don't you not?
Vivian,
She's
I have a
Vivian.
business proposition for you.
What do you want?
I'm going to be in town until Sunday. I'd like you to spend the week with me.
He needs her for a week.
Yes. Yes, I'd like to hire you as an employee. Would you consider spending a week with me? I will pay you to be at my beck and call.
Look, I'd love to be your beck and call girl, but you're not a rich, good-looking guy. You can get a million girls free.
I want a professional. Don't need any romantic hassles this week.
If you're talking 24 hours a day, it's gonna cost you.
Oh, yes, of course. All right, here we go. Give me a ballpark figure. How much?
6 full nights, days 2, 4,000.
6 nights at 300 is 1,800.
You want days 2?
2,000.
3,000.
Done.
Holy shit!
Vivian,
Is that a yes?
Vivian, is that a yes?
Most probably.
Yes. Yes.
I'll be gone most of the day. I want you to buy some clothes.
What's going on?
Really should think about traveler's checks.
We may be going out evenings. You'll need something to wear.
Like what?
Well, nothing too flashy, not too sexy. Conservative, you understand?
Mooring.
Elegant. Any questions?
Can I call you Eddie?
Not if you expect me to answer.
I would have stayed for 2,000.
I would have stayed for
Paid
2,000,
for.
and he would have paid 4.
Baby, I'm gonna treat you so nice, you're never gonna want to let me go.
3,000 for 6 days. And Vivian, I will let you go.
Okay, I think we will have to check. I'm not the YouTube expert. Sorry, how can I jump back for a few seconds? I don't know. Okay. No. Pretty Woman, no. I need the other one again. And that one. I want all of you to listen the last, maybe last 30 seconds for.
Basically negotiated the price.
Yeah, but that's not all.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Please,
Conservative, you understand?
Mooring.
now please listen to the numbers again. Or read the numbers again.
Can I call you Eddie?
Not if you expect me to answer.
I would have stayed for 2,000.
Paid for. I'll see you tonight.
Baby, I'm gonna treat you so nice, you're never gonna want to let me go.
Okay, now unfortunately we have to
6
stop
days.
because we
Vivian,
should
I
do
will
even
let you
more
go.
economics. Okay. Okay, now we can start our discussion on that. They were bargaining about the price. Okay, he needs help. You don't. She told him you can have million girls for free, but he wants to have a professional back and call girl. They agreed, I think, on the price of 3, isn't it?
Yeah. 3,000.
Okay. And do you have an idea why I've presented that video to you in terms of consumer surplus and producer surplus?
So the producer surplus is if he paid if they agree at 3,000, she said, but I can't do for 2,000. Just at the end of the video, she said,
He's having a surplus of 1,000.
2,000.
That's it. And
So there is 1,000 producer surplus.
yes, just give me a second, and then I will share the other screen again with all of you, including our Zoom participants as well. Here we are. Now let's try to come up in. Oh, wrong one. It's about this one. Come on. From time to time it happens. I don't know why. We were watching Pretty Woman. And if you will find some time during the Christmas break, maybe you can watch the other 120 minutes as well.
We'll be busy studying.
Okay. And we have seen that they agreed
3,000.
on 3K. Should be number 3. Yes. Now I need your help again.
at the end of the year, she said that she could have been 40,000, so there's the product producers.
Yes, very good.
And-
She, just let me write it down for a second. She would have accepted. She would have accepted 2K as well. And her 2K, that's something like cost. And you already mentioned the right term. She is the producer in that perspective. And her producer surplus is the 3K she will get minus her own cost of 2K. That's why the producer surplus is 1K. Mm-hmm.
And for the customer surplus, he said also he would have accepted the 4,000.
Yes, he would have paid 4K as well. He would have paid 4K, and this 4K, it's his willingness to pay. The willingness to pay. What is his consumer surplus? He is the consumer.
1,000.
Another 1,000. Yes, it's his willingness to pay minus they agreed on 3K. That's another 1K. And that's why what is the total surplus? We have the total surplus as well.
2,000. No.
Yes. Let's steal it from there. Okay, total surplus, it's producer plus consumer surplus. In our situation, it's 1K plus 1K, it's 2K. Are all of you fine with that consideration? Sorry for being not the YouTube expert. I don't know how to improve that. Okay, it's a rather old movie, I think from 1990. It's how old? 33 years old, maybe. Yeah.
33, yeah.
Okay, but yeah, I still like it very much. I've seen it for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times.
So the economic well-being of this deal is really healthy, I would say. With 2K.
For the 2 of them, yeah. I think it's beneficial for both of them, okay? And the 1K in the 1990 years, maybe today it's, I don't know, 3K or 4K, I have no idea, due to inflation. Okay. Good, but now you know why I wanted to show you that short video clip, not only because I'm in favor of Julia Roberts, I'm in favor of the overall scene and the, let's say, combined consideration we can do there. Any questions from your side on that?
Did you think about the economic side the first time you watched the movie, or?
I can't remember. I can't remember when I watched that movie for the first time, but most probably I was not thinking of consumer surplus and producer surplus, to be honest.
So, did you think about it like right now on the spot, or did you think about it like at some point you're like, I can use this to?
Yeah, at a certain point in time, and then I recognized to maybe that's a kind of I can't translate it. Berufskrankheit. Just let me try to translate it because I was never using that term in the English language before. Berufskrankheit. I don't know. It's an illness, occupational illness, or no, industrial disease does not work. Okay,
it's a bit of work, I would say.
Yeah, but whenever I'm reading the newspaper, I'm thinking of my lectures, or sometimes watching, or even listening to music. It was Offspring or Red Hot Chili Peppers, Divide by Zero. There's a song, okay? I was thinking of applied mathematics, but that's a kind of Berufskrankheit. Whenever I'm reading the news, watching news on TV, then I'm from time to time thinking of our lectures. Okay, any further questions? Consumer surplus related, producer surplus related, no. Okay, then let's go on. The efficiency can be defined, or let's say we have an efficient situation when we were successful in maximizing the total surplus, okay? And that should be the goal for each and every government. But as you will see in a few seconds, we have Adam Smith, who told us, no, the market should help itself in terms of not engaging in too many government interventions. But from time to time, we are ending up in an efficient situation, but in a kind of unfair setting, okay? Unfair in terms of distributing the economic pie. It's not done in a fair way. It would be fair if we are distributing the economic prosperity uniformly, okay, let's say 50-50 or whatever, between the different members of our society. But unfortunately, for some situations, it does not work. And then we can think of externalities, you can think of market power, and so on. Okay, here, as always, it's like a pie, okay? And maybe you can remember our discussion about sharing the economic burden when it comes to taxation, depending on the different elasticities. There we will have, I would say, somehow the same questions again. And if you like that pie way of thinking, then you can see here, efficiency should be about a very big pie, and the question of equality, how the pie is sliced, okay? Or the pieces of the cake, of a, let's say, similar size, or do we have a small one and a large one, okay? That's always the same way of thinking, I would say. And just to give you already a kind of brief introduction, especially into the second one, the equality point of view, it's very important for me. You can just think of different pictures, okay? I will provide you with some fast pictures. Let's do this one and that one. Oh, should be a straight line. We can think of another picture like that one. I will label the axis in a second. And whenever it comes to the exam, whenever it comes to your bachelor thesis, please do never forget to label the axis, okay? Let's do this one. And let's do, for instance, I think it's easier if we do it in a slightly different way. Let's do it like that. And let's do it like that. Okay, labeling the axis should be about quantity, price, and so on and so on, always quantity, price. As always, supply, demand, supply, demand, supply 1, supply 2, demand. Okay. What about equality in the first one? What is the let's start with the consumer surplus. What is the consumer surplus within that picture?
In the first picture?
First picture, consumer surplus.
It's roughly equal to the producer's surplus.
Yep, roughly equal, and it's at the upper part, the upper triangle, isn't it? The consumer surplus here, it's that area there. That's the producer surplus. What about the consumer surplus? What about the producer surplus? Already mentioned by your colleague, it's that triangle here. And as you can see here, it's somehow the same size, isn't it? Not so if you have much more inelastic demand, okay? The second one is a very inelastic demand. And for this inelastic demand, you can see it here. We have a smaller producer surplus. and we have a larger consumer surplus. Okay, and we will do considerations, as you can see it within the third graph, shifting the supply curve, shifting the demand curve, consumer producer surplus number 1, consumer producer surplus number 2, and so on. Okay, considerations like that we can do as well. If you have the first supply curve, then we will have the first consumer surplus there. And then for whatever reason, you have a shift of the supply curve to the left or to the top. And then we will have a second consumer surplus. Let's do a type of different green, let's say. The second consumer surplus would be that one here. Okay, and then you can see the shift of the supply curve to the left, not very good for our consumers because the consumer surplus goes down. Are there any questions from your side? No. No questions? Okay, later on we will do several exercises on that. Don't worry. I told you that we have Adam Smith, okay? And Adam Smith told us, please have a look to the free market, okay? Because the free market typically helps you. The free markets allocate the supply of goods to the buyers who value them most highly, okay? This means typically the free market works. First of all, that buyers will pay for that good with the highest willingness to pay, with the highest value they assign to that product. And this is a very important point. That's why you will get this sign here. Free markets typically work. Because the second feature of the free market you can see here, free market again, allocates the demand for goods to the sellers who can produce them at the least cost. Okay, typically the buyers will jump in with the highest willingness to pay, and the sellers with the smallest cost will join that concept or will join that overall situation. Good, that's important. Here you can find a kind of summary, I would say. Consumer surplus, the upper part of the triangle, producer surplus, we can see here. Okay, that's not new to us. If the market works, then we do not need our government, okay? Because the social planner cannot increase the economic well-being. If we have no externalities, if we have no market power, if the market works, then at the market equilibrium, everything is fine. The social or the economic well-being can't be increased. But from time to time, unfortunately, we have that inefficient events, as I will show to you in a few seconds. Good. This part we have seen already. Free markets produce the quantity of goods that maximizes the sum of consumer and producer surplus. Okay, we will end up in a very efficient situation. That's what you can see here. Efficient allocation of resources. If we have the free market, if we have no externalities and no market power. That's why the laissez-faire approach will work. Okay, laissez-faire, that's what we have seen a few weeks ago already. Why do we have that very good situation whenever it comes to the market equilibrium? That's what you can see here. If we would have a quantity left to the equilibrium quantity, then we can go on, okay? Because left to the equilibrium quantity, we can see that the value to buyers is very high and the cost is very small, okay? That's why we should increase the quantity. This means if you are there, you should go to the right, or I don't know if it can be seen when I'm in front of the class. Let's say if you're there, you should go there. And if you're here already, then red in terms of cost, you have very high cost. Cost is higher than the value to your buyers. Okay, that's why once you're there, it makes sense to go to the left. If you're here, go to the right. If you're there, go to the left. And in the equilibrium, it's the perfect situation. Yeah, that's a kind of summary what we have already seen, I would say, to a certain extent. Okay, but I'm very much in favor of that picture because typically with the help of pictures, it's easier to explain the overall concepts. We know laissez-faire, we know Adam Smith, we know the his approach of the invisible hand. Free market, yeah, it's somewhat the same. Free markets is the best way to organize economic activity. Okay, you can say the last 4 slides always about the very same concepts. It's about economic efficiency. Okay, then on the upcoming slides, you can see a very interesting discussion about the exchange of kidneys. I don't want to do that right now. Nierentransplantation, I think that all of you know that problem. And then in the States, they had, I think in nearly every country, they had a broad discussion. It's about the mother, her son needed a kidney transplant, but the mother's kidney was not compatible. Then she donated her kidney to a third person. And by this action, she helped her son because then the son moved to the top of the kidney waiting list. Okay, and then for sure can extend the discussion. Should there be trading a kidney for money for an expensive experimental, or what makes more sense, so to say? Yeah, should it be free tuition for her son? Should she or can she sell her kidney for cash? All that questions then can be raised. Okay, but I don't want to do all of that discussion or the overall discussion right now. But you can read that slides by yourselves. I would like to do the last few slides here. The kidney exchange, please read it by yourselves. Here, fairness. Typically, you would benefit the rich at the expense of the poor. Okay, that's one very typical argument. I would like to do the last few slides here. We should allocate our resources efficiently, and we need some assumptions to have that efficient allocation of resources. We need competition. Okay, we need competition. If you have an let's say a monopoly or oligopoly, then it does not work. Then you have market power, and it does not work if you have the so-called externalities. Okay, you can see it here. Outcome in a market matters only to the buyers and sellers in that market. If we have externalities, then it does not work. Okay, here in red we can say markets have perfect competition. If you have market power, then it does not work. If you have market power, then it does not work. And this is number 1, so to say, or it's that number 1. And here only if you have externalities, then it does not work. Once you have market power, it does not work. Once you have externalities, it does not work. Okay, only if you have no market power and no externalities, then we can allocate our resources in an efficient way. Okay, when you can see it here, when these assumptions do not hold, then the market equilibrium is efficient may no longer be true. Okay, only if you have no externality, here it's written down, only if you have no market power, then it works. And externalities should not be there. Then it works. Okay, how to sum up that discussion? Externalities we have seen already in our very first session together. Externalities, they cause value from the market to depend on Okay, that's not new to you. And then we would end up in an inefficient equilibrium. Can you remember our two examples for externalities? We have positive externalities and negative externalities. Can you remember them?
Substitutes, or maybe movements?
What is the classical example for a negative externality?
Pollution.
Yeah, pollution. Okay, let's say they are producing, I don't know, something, and they're happy because they're producing some goods, but we are not happy because the air is dirty. Okay, and you can see it here. The outcome in the market matters only to the buyers and sellers in that market. No, it matters to us as well because the air is dirty. Do you have an example for positive externality?
Technological improvements.
Everybody will benefit typically. The classical example for a positive externality is a vaccination. Okay, let's assume I have the vaccination for whatever, then I'm safe, but you are safe as well, or let's say more safe. Okay, that's it to a certain extent for chapter 7, the theory. Okay, a lot of new or some new terms. Most of them are not really complicated. Okay, now it's time for doing some exercises together. Let's do the first exercise. We will do that one later on and that one later on. Let's start with the 726. Please build up small groups in the lecture hall, and please build up, or I will help you to build up some groups within Zoom. Let's do a breakout session. Again, let's do 3 rooms. Here we are, and now I would like to ask all of you to invest some minutes for exercise 726. Thank you very much for joining the Zoom breakout sessions right now. Okay, now all of you are back. Who wants to present the solution to us? Thank you very much. You did it. Very good. How
I
to
don't
fill?
think it illustrated correctly, but I just wanted to be sure before I color it.
You're right. How to show it to your colleagues? Here it's easy. Okay. I will. I think I will do it. I will do the same graph in a very fast way. What happens in terms of understanding? We have this early freeze, not good for our lemons. What happens to consumer surplus and the market for lemons? And then later on, it's about the market for lemonade. What happens?
For the lemons, the consumer surplus will be decreasing as
And
the price will increase for normal lemons.
yeah, but in terms of the graph,
The supply, so the graph could look like the graph number 3 that you just drew like a couple of slides before, where you showed like the 3 conditions. You drew it yourself in the notes. Yeah, there you go.
yeah,
It should look like number 3.
yes, it's like that one. And is it in this situation? Is it a shift to that direction or shift to that direction?
To the left.
It's
To the left.
It's a shift to the left, okay? And why? Yeah, because for each and every price, the quantity goes down, isn't it? The quantity goes down from here to there. And this you can do for every price. And that's why it's not a shift in that direction, it's a shift into that direction. Okay, that's it. And here we can already see that the consumer surplus is going down. Okay, good. We can do fast summary there. It's exercise 726. Market and the market for lemons. The supply curve shifts to the left. Maybe we can easily steal the picture. Done. Okay. Done from my point of view. The supply curve shifts to the left. And that's important. Here we are. And that's why the consumer surplus, here the question, am I right? Yes, it's about the consumer surplus. The consumer surplus decreases. And you can do it, let's say, in a more detailed way. You can introduce some areas, A, B, C, we will lose this and that area. For sure, we would be able to do that. There you would have to focus on this area, and then you have maybe A and B or whatever, okay? But that's what we can do for another exercise as well. This is the market for lemons, but there we have seen that we should focus on the market for lemonade as well. What about the market for lemonade?
The surplus will be increasing.
The consumer surplus will increase.
Will increase.
Why?
Because sour lemons are preferred for lemon.
Yeah, but then what happens to the market for lemonade?
Then the prices drop for the sour lemons because we will have a lot of sour lemons.
Okay, you're doing a differentiation between different types of lemons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lemons, right? So for
Okay.
lemons,
But let's say that we only have one sort of lemons to make life easier. If you have only, it's always I'm not good in. I'm not only not good in YouTube. I'm not good in the different sorts of lemons as well. Let's say we only have one sort of lemons, and due to the freeze, we have not as much lemons available. That's why the supply curve for lemons goes to the left, and the supply curve for lemonade will also go to the left. Okay, if you have only one sort of lemons. Okay? That's why in the market for lemonade will will be very similar. Okay, you will have very similar effects in the market for lemonade. Market for lemonade. It will have a very similar effect. We will also have a decline on the consumer surplus. And here, with this exercise, I wanted to point out that an event that affects consumer surplus an event that affects consumer surplus in one market often has effects in consumer surplus in related markets. That's what I wanted to point out with the help of that exercise. Any questions from your side with regards to that exercise? Okay. And one hint for the exam, please read carefully, okay? Lemons, lemonade. Whenever it comes to the exam, let's say in kind of wording, then here written in italic to point out the difference, maybe written in bold letters, underlined, whatever, okay? Or not underlined at all, but you have to be very careful. Okay, if there are no questions, then we can do the next exercise immediately. Let's do this one. The cost of producing flat screen TVs has fallen over the past decade, or maybe over the past 20 years, not only one decade, I don't know. Let's consider some implications of this fact. Draw a supply and demand diagram to show the effect of falling production costs on the price and quantity. Show what happens to the consumer surplus, producer surplus, and so on and so on. Okay. And now I would like to ask all of you to, within your diagram, please work with some different areas. Please include an A, B, C, we are winning this and that. Okay. Someone will win something, maybe someone will lose something. Okay. Please try to be very precise in terms of giving names to these small areas which will be affected due to the smaller costs of production. Please invest about, let's say, about 10 minutes for this exercise, okay? And via Zoom, we will do a new breakout session as well. Here we are, and I would like to ask all of you to join in via Zoom and in the lecture room. Thank you. Now you can see the major challenge of hybrid teaching, okay? Because if we would be only in the classroom, I would take some pieces of paper, show it there, but I have no chance to show this one to your colleagues via Zoom, or not so easy. Okay, now I think all of you are back. Who wants to present us the solution for this exercise? But I think it would be easier the other way around. If you would have a Zoom solution, I think the Zoom solution would be easier for me to show it to you on that screen. That can be done very easily. The other way around, working via a piece of paper is not as easy. Who wants to help me with the solution? What about the falling production costs, first of all? You can see it here. Cost of producing is going down. Producing that type of technical device has fallen. What happens to our supply and demand diagram? Now the diagram can't decrease, but what happens to the curves?
The consumer surplus will be comparatively less as to a producer surplus.
But let's do it step by step. Due to the smaller cost of producing that device, what happens to the diagram, first of all?
The supply curve will shift to the right.
Supply curve will shift to the right, yes. That's part A, 727. The supply curve shifts to the right. We have one demand curve. We have two supply curves. We have a number 1 and we have a number 2. Should be somehow parallel to each other. Quantity of flat screen TVs, price, demand, supply 1, supply 2 goes to the right. We have equilibrium number 1, equilibrium number 2. Okay. I think that's it for part A. We should show the effect of falling on the price and quantity. Please help me in terms of price and quantity. What can we see here?
Quantity increases and the price decreases as well.
Quantity increases and price decreases. Okay. Going to the left. Here. And there. This is Q1, Q2. I think we don't have to write down anything, isn't it? P1 and P2. The price is going down and the quantity is going up. Okay, that's the first part. What happens to consumer surplus? Now I'm asking you because you wanted to start already with the consumer surplus, I think.
Yes, the consumer surplus before was fairly less as compared to the producer surplus over a decade ago. But now the consumer surplus is comparatively more.
Number 1.
Significantly more.
And now it's number 2.
Number 2.
Okay.
And the producer surplus subsequently goes down after the decade.
Yeah, that's it. And I wanted to do at least one exercise together with you where we are including some names into the different areas to make it as clear as possible. That one should be A, B, we have C, and this one here should be D, E, we need F, and maybe we want P as well. Maybe we can include it there. And then I will include the D one as well. C is there, and D is oh, D is there. Okay, and now we can address the different effects. Now please help me. What is consumer surplus number 1? C. It's only A, you're right, yeah. What is consumer surplus number 2?
A, B, C, D.
Please be careful. No, you're right. A, B, C, D. Thank you. It's A and B and C and D. What is producer surplus number 1?
D, E.
It's
D plus E.
It's B and E, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
B and E. What is producer surplus number 2?
E, F, G.
I'm wrong. It's EFG. Yeah. Okay, now I think it's right, isn't it? From A to A, B, C, D, from B to E to EFG. That's it. Yeah. What about the difference? I think in terms of the consumer surplus, it's easy, isn't it? In terms of the consumer surplus, we can say within half a second, this one is positive. And that's why this one is larger than that one. Okay, there it's easy. There we can immediately say CS2 is more than CS1. But what about the ratio, or what about the relationship in between PS1 and PS2? Can we say that? Can we always say this one is identical? That's easy. But can we always say that B is more or less than F and G? Not necessarily, isn't it? Will depend on the relationship, let's say, will depend on that extent, to which extent to the right, and so on and so on. Okay, that's not as easy. We can write it down as follows. The delta, the change, in terms of the producer surplus should be PS2 minus PS1, which is F and G minus B, isn't it? Please help me if I'm wrong, because the E cancels out. This can be the easiest way of fastest way. It can be positive or negative. We don't know, okay? And here you can say that the increase in the quantity, you can see it here. The increase in the quantity, we can be even more precise. There we can include an arrow to that direction. We have an increase in quantity, but we have a decrease in the price. And you can say that the increase in the quantity increases the producer surplus, but the decrease in price decreases producer surplus. Okay, that's why we have two effects: a positive one due to the higher quantity, and a negative one due to the smaller price. And in terms of producer surplus, they have to come up with positive and negative. Okay, and you can say that let's say the positive effect in terms of the higher quantity, it's primarily that one. And we have a negative effect due to the smaller price due to that one. And the F, maybe something in between, kind of combination. Okay, yeah. That's what I wanted to analyze together with you. What about the total surplus? What about now we addressed the change in consumer surplus. We addressed the change in producer surplus. Do we have a question? No, it's not written down, but we can address the total surplus as well, okay? What about total surplus? In terms of consumer surplus and producer surplus. Now we can make life hopefully easier. What is total surplus number 1 in terms of our areas?
A, B, and E.
It's A, B, and E. Yeah, you just have to sum up the CS1 and PS1. You're right. A, B, and E. What about total surplus number 2? CS2 and PS2.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Let's focus on the graph first of all. All of them, isn't it? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I think that's what you mentioned. Yeah. All of them. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And that's why we can immediately say that the total surplus number 2, it's more than total surplus 1. Okay, the total surplus for sure increases. And the total surplus increases by this and that, and this and that, okay? Then you have A, B, E twice. Increases by C, D, F, G. Okay. And then last part of the question, I would say this is A, this is B. What about C? Suppose the supply of flat screen TVs is very elastic. Who benefits most from falling production costs?
Consumers.
Yes, consumers. And do you have an idea how to show that very fast? How can you show the part C very fast? Having a very elastic supply. Let's do it there, part C. Do you have an idea how to show it with a very, very, very elastic supply? You just assume a flat curve, okay? That would be the end of the line, so to say. A perfectly elastic one. And then you have the classical demand. And you have supply number 1 and supply number 2. Okay, this is quantity and this is price. We have demand. We have supply 1 and 2. Okay, and then you can easily see that we have what is the producer surplus in that situation?
Nothing.
Nothing. Producer surplus, if it's this is I think the official term is perfectly elastic, isn't it?
Yes.
Here,
So
perfectly.
it would be infinite.
It will be 0, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perfectly elastic supply curve. Let's say curves. And then we have a producer surplus equal to 0. You have, if this is A and this is B, then consumer surplus 1, it's A, and consumer surplus 2, it's A plus B. And if you have a very elastic supply, then consumers benefit most. That's the fast answer. And what you can see here, it's the most dramatic case. In my picture, you can see the most dramatic case. the most dramatic case of having a perfectly elastic supply curve. And there we have no producer surplus at all. Here, we can do it in this way. Then we have a situation, or we have an information number 1 and information number 2. Okay, clear to all of you? And then we have one question in the chat. We should show the diagram of number 26 again. Here we are, but we've stolen the diagram, as our colleague mentioned, from there. Okay, the very same diagram. This was exercise 726, and this is exercise 727, ABC. Okay, any questions from your side? Yep.
Is having like an increase in total surplus always a sign of good economic well-being or economic well-being?
The increase of the total surplus.
Yeah.
In general, yes, we have some exceptions. One exception we have seen.
The illegal drug.
That's it. Yeah. But typically it's, yeah, I would say not only for the consumer surplus, typically it's the overall surplus, the economic well-being measured by producer surplus plus consumer surplus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's always a good sign.
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Besides some exceptions, yes. Yeah. Okay. Are there any further questions? No. Okay. And then let's do a second, but somehow short break, and then we can stop some minutes earlier today. Okay. Let's do a break of, let's say, maybe 12 minutes. Okay. Let's go on at 11:50, and then we will stop some minutes earlier. Break until 12:15. Thank you very much.